frog in a pot of water. You turn the heat on, but you turn it low, and you leave it on low. The frog, over time, does nothing, and eventually, as time goes by, the water boils while the frog's in it. A slow boil. It's a pretty common thing, pretty common saying that, frog, low heat, eventually, frog won't move, won't leave, and it will boil to death. It doesn't realize that because it's a slow boil. So the new normal, your new normal, my new normal, the new normal. I have a four-letter word for it. It rhymes with yuck. That's what I think of it. But let's go over a few things. I'm not going to go over the whole history of it. I'm just going to highlight some stuff from the last 50 years or beyond that a little bit. But I'm just going to, say a few things here and to get people thinking. So, seatbelts, 1968. That's when they were implemented to be law that they must be in your vehicles and you must wear a seatbelt. That's federal level. Why? Do they care about you? Do they care about others? My take on it is absolutely not. But I do know once that was implemented, the manufacturers had to spend more money, spend more research, more in engineering, and everything else that gets involved with that, and made sure seatbelts that were approved were installed in all vehicles, and then from there, you and I have to wear a seatbelt at all times, unless you're on your own property, but that's another story. Excuse me. So gold was taken away from the dollar, so the dollar fiat became fiat, so the dollar was no longer backed by gold. This was 1971, from Nixon, August 15th, 1971. What does that mean? Well, that means everything from that point on wasn't backed by gold, wasn't backed by anything. It's just paper or digits nowadays that have no real value to them whatsoever. The only reason people take them is because that's how they get paid from their employers. That's what you have to use to pay your taxes with. That's what people accept as a payment. But just like a house of cards, eventually you get too much on there, it's going to come down and collapse. I'll say hyperinflation, Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, just to name a few. So then how about smoking is illegal. Smoking is not legal for most states. In private businesses, you and I or someone else may own, whether it's a bar, restaurant, something else that they are currently paying a mortgage on. They get a second mortgage to have this, we'll call it a bar, a club that you were allowed to smoke in and other people allowed to smoke in. Now, not because you're trying to make it healthier and safer for your employees or your customers that come in, or do you want them to have an option of a smoke-free establishment versus a smoke establishment that has a bunch of smoke in it? No, you don't have that option. Now you no longer can allow that in most states. I think there's 38 of the 50 states now that do not allow smoking, and almost all, if not every, private establishment. It started in California, I believe it was 95, and from there other states just started falling away from it. I'm not a smoker myself, but I do believe in personal freedom and your liberty to do what you want with your private property. And they said it was for the employees. Well, my take on it is that if you're affected by that as an employee, you do not have to work there. There's other places that do not allow smoking that you can go work somewhere else. It's not the same thing, but think of it this way. If you work at a strip club, you're not a dancer, there's bouncers there, and you just happen to be a server, whether you're male or female, you're just a server there, but you don't agree with all the stuff going on there and the clientele that comes in and what the girls up there are doing and what the guys up there are doing if it's a male strip joint. And you don't have to work there. You can go work somewhere else. That's freedom. You're allowed choice. But the government stepped in and you're no longer allowed choice to go somewhere else that might be smoke free or to go somewhere else that might allow smoking. If you're like, well, I just want to sit back, have a couple drinks after the work day and have a cigar. You can no longer allowed to do that inside of a private establishment. And then there's no, I mean, this is, when I was a child, I remember riding in the back of a pickup truck, riding in the bed of a pickup truck with a few friends, a few cousins. Sometimes there was a dog or two there. And riding in the back, I mean, whether it was for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, or even just through town, it was fun. It was the cool thing to do. Just hop in the back of the pickup truck and just go. And then you just talked there and, messed around, did different games, word games, that kind of stuff, sang songs, whatever. It was just, you did kid things. That was allowed. It's no longer allowed. Dodgeball. I played so many games of dodgeball when I was in elementary school, middle school, and then high school not so much, but it was even part of the curriculum for your physical education, for your gym class. Even in high school, they had dodgeball as one of the activities that they went over and did. Now that I've seen my children, have went into government school, and I pulled them out years ago, thankfully. But there was no more dodgeball allowed. They didn't do that because it's dangerous and people feel like they get picked on or they get focused on. So they don't allow that. Dodgeball. Tag, the same thing. I played a lot of tag, elementary school, that kind of stuff. That is no longer allowed because someone feels left out. Someone feels like they're being sought after or focused on as far as being the one who's always it or the one that people always want to tag to become it. Or ones that don't get tagged to feel like they're left out. I mean, tag's no longer allowed. Children aren't allowed to go to the park without parents. Whether you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, let me go back. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, maybe 14, 15 at some states, but pretty much the 8 through the 12, 13. I know there's a big frown about that. If you live in a certain area and there's a block there's a park a couple blocks away, 2, 3 blocks away, and you can even see them outside your window of where you're at, your residence, or if you're in your yard, or you're next door neighbor, you're over there, you can still see that park, most of it. So you can still see your children. On top of that, now, there's cell phones. They have cell phones. Most children do. You can contact them if something's wrong. They can contact you if something's wrong. That's looked down upon. I know some states, and there's been many stories where people have got CPS called on them, Child Protective Services, because they abandoned their child. They let their child go to the park alone, even though it was just a block away, or not even a full block away. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. These little things get implemented, and people, not a big deal, not a big deal. But you look at them, from a step back and look at them, freedoms have been taken away, and they continue to be taken away. Every turn and every time you look. So we also have allowing children to fail. I mean, it feels like no child's allowed to fail. I think the best teacher is you fail. If you fail, it's the best chance to learn. You will not learn any faster than once you fail. Because it's such a motivator to not fail the next time or learn from your mistakes. Children aren't allowed to get hurt. They're not allowed to, run around on the park or run around on the jungle gym or whatever you want to call it during recess. They're not allowed to do that. That goes along with tag. They're not allowed to get hurt. Children, in my opinion, need to get hurt because they need to learn. Getting hurt and failing is part of learning. So on top of that, with that, I should say, they're not allowed to succeed. Because success, even though you succeed, these children might not succeed. This group of children might not have been successful. They might not succeed, but you did. So you make them feel bad. You make them look bad. You make them get hurt, and that's not allowed. So you can't fail. You can't succeed. You can't get hurt. They're taking everything away that there is for growing up and being a child. You can't be a child anymore. Period. It's not allowed. I can go into, I won't go into it, but I'll just say that's why children, in my opinion, are medicated today. They never were medicated when I was a child. But that's another video for a different day. The children can't even carry in their inhalers or their Epi-pens or any other life-saving things that they need if they're out for recess or if they're out on a field trip with the school. They can't have that on them. So if one of them gets stung by a bee and they need that Epi-pen, it's not there. And most of the time, the hall monitors or the outdoor monitors or the teachers don't carry that stuff either. You need to go to the nurse. So if something's that detrimental, that you need that in case something happens, why are you not allowed to have it on you? Same thing goes with it with inhalers. If you're out in recess and you're running and you're playing tag, which you can't do anymore, or playing baseball, or just doing football with some kids in the recess at the park, and you have an asthma attack, you no longer have that inhaler on you. You're not allowed to carry it. So now you have to have one of your friends around you or someone around you contact the outdoor monitor or the recess monitor, and then they have to get a hold of the nurse to get that thing to you or get you to the nurse to take that life-saving thing. That's how ridiculous things have become, and they're getting worse, and it doesn't seem like anyone's doing anything about it. The TSA is another thing. I mean, the TSA was temporary, just like that thing Nixon passed in '71. It was a temporary thing to get us away from get the dollar away from gold. It was no longer backed by gold temporarily. It's still here. The TSA was a temporary thing. It's still here because of the TSA. You're no longer to bring liquids on the plane. Not really. You're allowed to bring a full quart added up amount of liquids on the plane. But that being said, they all have to be sample sizes, travel sizes. Your cream, your lotion, your contact solution, your toothpaste can no longer be larger than 3.4 ounces each. That's it. They can not add up to anything more than a quart-sized amount of liquid, is what they call it. So whether it's a paste like a toothpaste, that all counts. Why? Well, because it's just a temporary thing we're doing until we can level the field and make sure there's no more terroristic threats out there and we're safe. It's for your benefit. That's how they always package it. Temperature checks. You want to go into the dentist or doctor, orthodontist, chiropractor sometimes, you need to get your temperature checked. You need to go to work. There's a lot of them out there. You need to get your temperature checked before you can go to work. And then this goes along with, now most people, not most, a lot more people can work nowadays, even though they're not essential employees. They're not considered essential employees by the government because the government knows best and they know what is essential and what work is essential and what employment is essential, what business is essential. Like Walmart's essential, your Cub Foods is essential, your Home Depot's essential, but your lumberyard down the road might not be essential. Your little grocery store that's a convenience store might not be essential. So those employees are not essential employees, but the other ones, for Walmart, for Amazon, they're all essential employees. So even though that job is essential for the employee that works at that small business, because it's essential for them to provide for their family. The government says it's not essential, so you can no longer work there because they can no longer operate. The business is no longer essential for the time being. They said temporary. We know where temporary things from the government goes. It never goes away. That's where it goes. It stays always. You're not allowed to be present when your child is distance learning. So it seems like now almost every school, for the most part, is distance learning. They're not going to school anymore. They are, signing on the computer, and they see the teacher, some sort of semblance of a classroom with other children are there. And some states, you're not allowed to be present as a parent. You have to sign a contract with the school board, with the school district, saying you will not be around, you will not watch, you will not partake in your child's distance learning. If you do, there's consequences. That seems hugely backwards to me, and it should to everyone else. There's something behind that more sinister, is my opinion. Fathers aren't allowed when the child's being born, in most circumstances now. Just the mother and those that are deemed essential as a nurse, doctors, whatever, but the father's not allowed there. Same thing goes for once the child's born, the father's not allowed to be there. Grandma and grandpa can't be there. Siblings cannot be there until the child and the mother leave the hospital, whether that's the next day or a few days down the road. It's just not important, or it's too dangerous, they put it. There's some circumstances now, California, Michigan, at least some other states, where holiday gatherings are frowned upon, looked down upon, shouldn't have them. If you do, you have to limit it to 1 or 2 families only. So many people per family can be there at the most, and then it has to be limited from 2 to 3 hours at the most. That's it. And then from there, you need to make sure you get everyone's name, address, email, contact information that was there, and whether you have to pass it along, and I believe California do, I'm not positive about Michigan, and other states, but you need to, make sure they're traceable. Make sure you got all that information for whatever the state deems fit, or the government deems fit, because it's about your safety. It's to protect you. That's what it's always about. Well, that's the way they always sell it. So, anyways, I know this isn't monetary, really, and I will try to do a few more monetary things in the near future, real soon. But I feel this is so hot. It's right here, right now. And with these little things that are happening, they're changing, and it's disrupting, and it's taking freedoms away, starting way back in the 1968 with the seatbelt. There's nothing said that I cannot choose not to wear a seatbelt, because if I die or harm myself, that's all on me. That's called freedom. Will I wear a seatbelt? Absolutely. Do I think everyone should? Absolutely. But I don't think everyone should be forced to. And this goes along with everything else that we're talking about here. It's for your safety. Masks, 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 masks. Now, because science says, they say. Well, not really. There's a few scientists that say, a bunch more politicians that say, but there are tenfold the reports and the reporting and a lot of stuff done on this over the years. I'm not just talking this year, showing and saying how masks don't do anything to prevent the flu and prevent other sicknesses and transfer of germs or anything like that. And on top of it, there are so much more of a number of reports out there and specialists out there that will say, actually, it points to different things that can be harmful, whether it's bacteria buildup, whether it's lack of oxygen, whether it's too much carbon dioxide, whether it's not allowed to detox through your breathing like you should. I'm just broad brushing it, but look it up. they're out there. And just, I'm trying to get this there. If you feel anything, you feel uncomfortable with anything going on, you got to stand up. You got to stand up. Now, if you do, maybe someone else will. And then pretty soon it goes from 2 people to 20 people to 500 people to 2,000 people. I mean, it multiplies, and that's how it happens. If you're not comfortable with it, do it now. I've told my sister, I said, you should have taken your children out of school when this first happened, and she went to distance learning, and that's what she's doing. That's not taking them out of school, because the school is still getting money. They're still getting funds. This distance learning, they're still getting funds. The teachers are still getting paid. The whole education system's still getting that tax money. They're still getting it. If you pull your children out, and I told her, and if other people do, then that shows power. And then they start to say, hey, all right, this is hurting us. What's going on? What are we doing wrong? What do we need to do to better the situation for you and your children? Because now we no longer have the power, and we can no longer broadly do whatever we want to do, because you're showing us your cards and you're saying, hey, we have the power here because we're pulling our kids and we're homeschooling. And you're no longer getting this funding, this tax money from us, from having our kids in there. So I told her, I hope it happens. I mean, if you're not feeling comfortable, maybe that's a step you want to take. Maybe that's spread the word. When people do it, I mean, 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 5 people, 10 people, I mean, it's going to happen. If you guys wanted to, you can make it happen. So just think about these things. The bullying frog thing, it's here, but it feels like they're turning that heat up. They're not allowing it to just slowly boil. They're turning it up, and they're making it uncomfortable, but they're not allowing us to jump out. So you got to do what you got to do. What's the best thing that you need to do for yourself and your family? Think about that. As always, thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, protect yourself, protect your family, and protect your wealth.